He was the foundation of Overwatch. For some, he was an oddity in a cast of colourful characters. For others, a canvas on which to paint their legacy or their best shot at redemption. But no matter who played him, this ape made Overwatch what it is today.
How do they touch the cart? The bubble's going to be there, Violet's going to be forced away, he's in grave danger indeed! The touch is there from Striker, he has a dead blossom, but there's no chance! The Dallas Fuel take their place amongst the stars, rising to become your 2022 Overwatch League champions!
Winston is the DNA of Overwatch. This deceptively challenging primate didn't just change the game, in many ways he is the game. Overwatch is a fundamentally optimistic game, and the chief proponent of that hopeful worldview is Winston. Winston is an intelligent, genetically enhanced gorilla named after his father figure, Dr. Harold Winston, who raised him in space on the Horizon lunar colony.
Always remember, never accept the world as it appears to be. Dare to see it for what it could be.
But Winston wasn't the only super intelligent gorilla at the colony, and when the others decided to take their fate into their own hands, he chose to escape to Earth. There, Winston eventually put his ideals into action as part of Overwatch, where he worked primarily as a scientist and engineer, notably creating the device that allows Tracer to control her time travel abilities. Eventually, he also joined Overwatch's strike team, taking to the field himself and notably handing Doomfist his first defeat.
That's Doomfist's gauntlet! Oh man, they said he could level a skyscraper. And remember, he was all fighting and Winston beat him and was like, Primal Punch!
Winston's commitment to science and optimism also factor into his decision to bring the Overwatch team back together after it disbands. He believes and implements human ideals despite being an adopted member of our species. Winston believes in the benefits of science and the power of humans to employ it for the greater good, even when they themselves forget about it or lose hope. But whatever he represents, Winston is also literally a gorilla. Gorillas are great apes and one of the strongest creatures on the planet by body mass. Exact numbers vary, obviously, but some male silverback gorillas can lift 4 times their body weight. If they're just pushing something, it can be up to 10 times their weight.
Fucking crazy 800-pound silverback
What's wrong
bursting
with
through the
people?
trees. Gets right in your face. He's got fangs and he only eats vegetables.
I know.
And the fangs
Shredded.
are only designed to you up.
What I'm trying to say is that even a regular gorilla with gorilla intelligence and no technological help is an absolute wrecking ball, because gorillas are yoked naturally. But in some ways, Winston is the answer to the age-old hypothetical. How jacked could a gorilla get if they had access to everything humans have? When Winston activates his ultimate, Primal Rage, he can literally fling heroes into the air with only his bare hands. It gets even crazier though, because Winston also has a jetpack, a shield generator, and a high-tech lightning cannon. Winston's primary weapon was initially a short-range Tesla weapon that fired a localized energy arc and required almost no aim. Later, in Overwatch 2, it was modified to add a right-click that also fires a longer-range beam out to 30 meters, giving him the ability to poke. The shield barrier projector is dome-shaped and deployed directly under Winston when activated. This helps him shield his team, block off avenues of attack, and generally cause people to get really annoyed. And of course, to get these 2 short-range tools into the fight, Winston needs a way to close the gap quickly. That's where his jump pack, augmenting his natural athletic ability, comes into play. And obviously, a gorilla crash landing next to you after being 40 feet in the air is pretty disruptive. All of it put together makes Winston a unique presence in Overwatch. But what makes him so beloved? Winston sits in the middle of a conflict between his massive strength and his personal conviction that the world can be made better not through force, of which he has plenty, but instead through science and a commitment to all people. That theme probably resonates with a lot of fans. Overwatch isn't necessarily preaching to its audience, but it does have a fairly optimistic view of humanity's future, and who wouldn't prefer a world with less violence? Blizzard even seemed to suggest that Winston was somehow emblematic of Blizzard itself. When longtime creative director Chris Metzen left the company, Blizzard produced a statue that showed him alongside a young Winston. As for Winston himself, well, he's hard not to love, from the fact that he pays his taxes.
I wish he could do my taxes.
You pay taxes? What, to the moon?
No, Switzerland.
To his fascination with a certain nut-based spread.
Did someone say peanut butter?
I think it's fair to say that Winston was one of the most interesting designs of the initial launch version of Overwatch. He was also pretty approachable. At first glance, none of his abilities are very complicated. Sure, there are more complex elements here for players to master, but at the end of the day, Winston wants to leap into the enemy team and ensure they are extremely uncomfortable.
Go now, go now. We don't have time to wait. Get the f in. Just get in.
He drops his shield wherever he is, so there's no need to aim it or keep it held up for teammates. Just dropping it in the middle of the enemy team is likely to get some results. The Tesla cannon doesn't require precise aim for the left click. In fact, before the right click beam was added, playing Winston didn't really feel like playing a character in an FPS sometimes, because you weren't really shooting or aiming.
Oh my god, Bob just blasted him. Holy shit. Winston! How's it hanging?
The other two abilities have more of their own complexities, sure.
Oh. Fuck me.
You want? Oh, what the f is that, bro?
But Primal Rage is an easy way to completely scatter the enemy team, or at the very least, make yourself the target of their attention. Winston felt like one of the most approachable tanks at launch. He was simple, flexible, and fairly effective in most situations. But he did have his weaknesses. In particular, his huge frame struggled against certain heroes who couldn't help but hit him, like Mei and Reaper. Ana's eventual introduction allowed teams to use Sleep Dart to stop him, while Brigitte's debut saw him get his face smashed with a shield or a whip shot.
I'm no hook. Can I come down?
But a player could jump in, literally, and have fun. In fact, for some, it was too easy to jump in.
You gotta be freaking kidding me, dude. Honestly, why do I even play this game?
Dude, what's wrong?
These people want to be rewarded for doing what they should be doing all the time. This guy literally just used his utility and thinks he's some kind of god. Wowee!
Maybe he's just used to being rewarded for stuff he's doing anyways.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, it is for me at least, because I have this.
What the heck is that?
It's my sick new Cash App card. And by using it for certain purchases, I get rewarded for stuff I'm gonna buy anyways. Isn't that awesome?
It's beautiful.
That's not all. When you use your Cash App card, you can get cash back and discounts on everyday purchases. So it's like someone's always got your back.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's great. It can even get you exclusive access to events and tour pre-sales. It's so easy to use, just like your utility.
Huh, the Cash App card really does go the extra mile, but can it get me better teammates?
Look, the Cash App card can do a lot, but it can't buy you friends.
First off, let's be clear. There are absolutely intricacies to playing Winston. We'll get to them in a bit. The problem is that his nearly aim-free primary weapon and easy-to-understand kit had given his casual players a kind of reputation for simplicity. It led to the no aim, no brain, Winston main meme, as Winston and other heroes with more lenient weapons became the butt of some of the community's jokes.
I know a lot of people are new juicers. He actually was a pro FPS player.
Yeah, but I played the character that didn't do FPS things. He just kind of did.
Yeah, but
Winston?
the reason he was the best was because everyone else
Wait,
who played
actually?
Winston.
Yeah,
everyone else who played Winston got lazy. They never practiced
Wait, you
their
popped
aim.
off on Winston?
But
Yeah.
And far more recently, the irreverent Winton meme that was weirdly linked to the Winston plushie has kind of taken over the community. In fact, Blizzard themselves have posted the meme, and even included the plushie in the game as an emote called Souvenir Winston.
Winston, 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 Winston. Winston.
Now, these things didn't mean that there weren't incredible Winston players, it's just that the highlights didn't show them clicking heads.
I need to go in. Guys, don't leave point, please. Don't stay point.
Well, his design, especially before Overwatch 2 added the right click, was about figuring out when to go in and when to retreat. All of Winston's tools point directly to this basic question. You can't throw your shield or otherwise project it, you just drop it under you. Your weapon has minimal range, and your ultimate is designed to prolong the amount of time you can hang in a fight, and to make the enemy team's life hell while you swat them around like flies. But in pro play, well, your team normally knows when you're about to go in, and they understand how to play around the opportunities created by a massive gorilla making an entrance.
Bennett, going back, somehow Muma finds himself deep in the enemy spawn, although this could actually present an opening. It's hard to chase him down quickly in this environment. Outlaws getting onto the point in the rest of the map, and Muma just wasting so much time.
Muma's a wanderer, is what we're seeing here, but somehow XE gets caught out. The disruption, they chase down Muma. Dante, most me and Hobbit trying to turn it around, but Muma's excellent adventure might have actually worked out for the Outlaws here, and what a wild point A so far.
You know, I just want to say, don't try this at home at your rank games. You're going to fail. You're not as good as Muma, but he absolutely makes that work.
And while Winston appeared deceptively simple, there was also plenty about the character to optimize. Primal Rage might just be one of the hardest abilities in the game to use well. Unlike a lot of other ultimates, Primal Rage has many valid uses depending on the situation.
세 가지 중에 그냥 하나만 하면 되는데 상대를 원시분으로 죽이거나 아니면은 자기 힐러, 우리 힐러를 물러오는 상대를 밀어주거나 아니면은 뭉쳐있는 상대를 진영 붕괴시켜주거나 이 셋 중 하나를 상황에 맞게 골라가지고 잘 판단해서 쓰는 게 제일 중요해요.
Many incredible Primal Rage clips involve players being juggled, and this technique was refined over time by the world's best. Juggling draws on a combination of movement, jumping, and aiming techniques, as well as melee cancelling and his swing's massive hitbox to reliably lock down opponents. Even his humble shield, which is actually spherical until it hits the ground, had depth.
Oh my god, dude!
And it wasn't only good for blocking ults. The best Winstons know how to use their shield to harass and even block enemy healing. And that's the thing about Winston. His popularity didn't necessarily lead to top tier status, but when he showed up, he absolutely made waves.
It's 3 kills in a row, nice. Comeback here from Mighty AOD though, as Miro says, nope. Stifles that one almost immediately. Good deflection, he's gonna grab sleep.
The early days of competitive Overwatch were a feeling out process, and part of that was the implementation of hero limits. At first, there were no limits at all, and that was how Blizzard liked it, arguing that the ability to employ unique strategies was part of Overwatch's envisioned design. But Winston thrived in that environment, because 2 Winstons jumping into a back line represented a lot of bulk suddenly focusing on your healers. The jump also made him highly mobile and capable of rushing a point at the beginning of a round. Competitive play on King of the Hill maps in the game's nascent competitive scene became Winston's stomping grounds, as he was often the tank of choice. In July 2016, Sideshow wrote an article for Over.gg about the proposal for hero limits, and he cited Winston specifically as one of the biggest offenders. Blizzard announced at BlizzCon 2016 that hero limits would be implemented for quick play, though the competitive community had been playing in tournaments with the limitation for months. months. Even after hero limits were implemented, his kit just worked with this style of map, but even outside them, dive took over the meta at multiple different times throughout the game's history, and Winston would be a critical part of those comps. As competitive play began in earnest, one of the most notable Winston mains was South Korean tank player Miro, later called the godfather of main tanks. Miro's heyday was before the Overwatch League began in 2018, and as part of Lunatic High, he showed us an early glimpse of Winston's potential.
Vic coming back in with the Pharah. Zumba goes down fairly soon, but there's a Primal Rage for Miro. You gotta get away from that monkey. Wow, 2 mid-air hits, 3 mid-air hits. See ya! Oh,
he gets
he's back! You got that cooldown, man.
Wow.
I will never question a decision made by Miro.
Miro also represented South Korea in their victorious campaign at the inaugural Overwatch World Cup in 2016.
Getting a bit of time on the point already. Miro has that Primal Rage, and he's going to jump right to spawn to try to make sure nobody gets back. What are you going to do when Miro's in your face already? Well, the answer is going to be not much. And South Korea going to take Temple of Anubis right here. And Miro escapes the fight, comes back down again. Escapes the fight, comes back down again. Okay, yep, and finally takes that IDQD. There you go, Miro in a nutshell, guys. All right, I guess that's it, man. It's a victory lap for South Korea. Arhan pulls out the Dragon Blade. There goes Russia. Overtime activated, the closest they've gotten all series. But this is it. South Korea will win the Overwatch World Cup without dropping a single map.
More than any other early Winston specialist, Miro seemed to have a knack for knowing the exact moment he could strike to do the most damage to the enemy team, and the skills with his positioning to get there in time. And even if he didn't immediately enable kills, Miro's approach meant that he stuck around as long as possible to sow maximum chaos.
다른 건 다 비슷한 거 같은데 이제 윈선은 원시의 분노를 얼마나 잘 쓰냐에서 좀 실력이 갈린다고 생각해요.
Overwatch game director Jeff Kaplan even told esports that Miro's performance made him reconsider exactly how to buff Winston. So even the developers had their eyes opened as Miro raised Winston's perceived skill ceiling. Unfortunately, Miro's success quickly ran out when the Overwatch League began, but he became a coach, and of course, his contributions to the character would remain in the game's canon forever. But soon, another incredible player would demonstrate it was his nightmare that turned into a second chance, and Winston was key to his success. Fearless was a member of the Shanghai Dragons roster that infamously went 0-40 in the Overwatch League's inaugural season. Worse, he was brought in to try to fix things after Stage 2. After spending the next year on the Org's contender team, he got another shot with the main team for Season 3. But both Fearless and Winston eventually got their time in the sun.
This Primal Rage, they've got to dodge the flux from Marvel, but it is still technically winnable for Shanghai.
Lip moves in, he's going to trigger the overtime, and now Fearless moves in with the nano boost. Primal Rage used, he has to go sicko mode, he has to go clutch, and Shanghai Dragons, they might just be doing it. Fearless, he's doing it, he's creating the space for his team. Lip and Fleder are turning up when it matters most. They get the opening picks, and what a turnaround. The overtime, is it not enough? It is not enough whatsoever. The Shanghai Dragons have done it. I cannot believe what we have witnessed. The reverse sweep.
What a series. And our player of the match, presented by Xfinity, is the one, the only. It's Fearless. He came in when his team needed it most. He was subbed out for the beginning. We couldn't really figure out the reasoning why, but he brought it back. He played perfectly. His Primal Rages were fantastic across the board. He was setting his team up for plays like we'd never even seen, but he was doing it on multiple different heroes. Fearless is our player of the match. I cannot think of a more deserving player on the Shanghai side.
Fearless eventually joined the Dallas Fuel, where he won more than a May Melee, he won it all. Notably, he played a lot in the 2022 playoffs after having first spent much of Season 5 behind the team's other tank player, Hanbin, due to the meta.
일단 제가 결승전에 갔다는 게 사실 좀 막 안 믿기기도 했지만 막상 이제 그 경기 당일날 다가오니까 체감이 막 확 들더라고요.
How do they touch the cart? The bomb's going to be there, Violet's going to be forced away, he's in grave danger indeed! The touch is there from Striker, he has a death blossom, but there's no chance! The Dallas Fuel take their place amongst the stars! The burst brighter than them all! Rising to become your 2022 of Dallas Fuel. And now the first championship!
Bits of Fearless here and there this season, but we didn't expect them to have to rely on this guy from the Shanghai Dragons in one of the toughest positions any player could be in, unable to find a win with that team. Now he's able to take the stage as a victor, as a champion.
Fearless's Winston prowess was part of the reason that both he and Hanbin could coexist on the Fuel in the one-tank era of Overwatch 2. His post-Overwatch League stint with Zeta Division at the Esports World Cup even saw Winston banned away by opponents Toronto Ultra.
Yes, this is definitely why Bernard's still in, right? Winston got.
Yeah, they wanted nothing to do with Fearless. We said, hey, listen, we're showing you. We're playing slow. We're playing the double flex. We're probably going to try and play the Sigma. We do not want Fearless in here at all. We don't even want to risk it.
And Winston's characteristic optimism was a good fit for a player who hit the lowest competitive low at the beginning of the Overwatch League, but failed to let it define him.
화물맵인 줄 알아서 갑자기 애들이 아니야 콜로세오 이러는 거예요. 콜로세오? 진짜 저희가 밀기의 제왕이잖아요. 저희 댈러스가 막 이제 트로피로 걸어가는 그 순간이 발이 너무 가벼운 거예요. 와, 날아갈 수 있었을 것 같아요. 날개 달렸을 것 같아요, 그때는. 이 순간만큼은 우리가 주인공이고 너무 그냥 지금 말로 설명할 수 없을 정도로 행복했었어요. 그리고
There were more Winston specialists than just Miro and Fearless in Overwatch's competitive history, of course. Other pro players like Gushui and Smurf were well known for their Winston during the peak of Overwatch League competition. Because of the efforts of all these Winston innovators, many consider him one of the hardest heroes to master, despite that initial approachable feeling. Again, Winston wasn't always a meta pick, but he found his moments. Whenever dive-style comps became popular, Winston was typically in the mix, and since dive metas have their lovers and their detractors, well, the most popular dive tank does too. Winston is one of those heroes that showed how different Overwatch aimed to be from other shooters, and it seemed like Blizzard's developers felt that a part of them was reflected in the hero himself. He was one of the most intriguing designs at launch. He became a key part of the player culture in the game, whether you loved him or hated him. And some of the game's biggest names have shown time and time again that when you need to make history, sometimes you need a huge gorilla with a jump pack and a Tesla cannon.
Winston? Is that you, love? It's been too long.
Yes. Yes, it has.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring the notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit us up on our X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.